Welcome to the North vs. South podcast, where we discuss gaming, technology, TV, and films. In this episode, we talk about the latest James Bond film, No Time to Die. Please expect major spoilers for this film and minor spoilers for all other Daniel Craig James Bond films.
Okay, Josh, what did you think to the latest James Bond? What is it called? I forgot what it's called.
It's called No Way to Die.
Yeah, that's right. I remember now.
So it kind of gives away what's going to happen, but we'll get to that. So to start off, how did in this pandemic time, how did you watch it? Did you go to the cinema or did you wait for it to come out on DVD or?
I watched it. I watched it in the cinema. I managed to watch it in the cinema. I didn't. That's a funny story because I didn't plan to watch it in the cinema.
Right.
I wanted to go and watch Dune.
Oh yeah.
But for some because we get free cinema tickets.
Yeah.
And for some reason it wouldn't let us watch like the seat that we chose for Dune. It said you had to pay a $5. So I was like, oh, sod that. So then I tried it with James Bond, and it worked. We got it for free. So Mavi, my partner, was she was quite surprised because I said we were going to go and watch Dune, and then when the title card came out when it says doo 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 doo, she's like, she gave me like what she like WTF kind of look, like what's going on. But I watched it in the cinema, but originally this film was intended to come out in 2020.
Well, yeah, that's obviously this is one of the bigger films that was hit with the pandemic. And so, do you know much about the production schedule? Was this all done and dusted before the pandemic started?
Yeah, I believe so. It was meant to come out around about.
So it's not like a lot of the Marvel shows we've been speaking about, where actually a lot of them were filmed during the pandemic. So this was all done and dusted, and then they just kind of they released it 1 month too late and got delayed by almost 2 years because of the pandemic.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You can kind of understand why they were so upset and why they were so eager to get it out.
Well,
Because I think this film has had the most brash. The way they've tried to they've really wanted to get this film out. Who is it? MGM or whoever owns James Bond.
Yeah, it did get delayed twice. It got delayed with the pandemic. I think it was meant to come out a bit earlier in 2021, but it got delayed again till like September time, if I remember. That's when it came out, around about that time. But yeah, it's finally come out. What would you say? Like for me, it's not as good as Casino Royale. I don't know. I think it's better than Skyfall.
That's interesting. So, just briefly, what did you think about the previous Daniel Craig films?
Casino Royale, I thought was the best. Quantum of Solace, it's okay. It's not very good, but it's
That's the one that came out during the writer's strike, wasn't it? Daniel Craig had to write the second half of the film. That's what I think I've heard about that one.
And Skyfall, at the time, I thought it was really good, but if you look back on that film, it doesn't really hold up very well for me. It just seems like a Darker Knight ripoff. And then the Spectre was, for me, is probably the worst out of all of them. And then this new one, I would say, is probably like second behind Casino Royale.
Okay. I would probably be a bit similar, but not because I have strong feelings. I think I enjoyed Spectre, but right now I can only remember one scene, and I think that's where he just met the woman and they're chased in some snowy place in some cars or something like that. That's literally the only scene I can remember from Spectre.
I remember in Spectre, it's like they're on the train and they have this massive bash up with this guy, and the whole train gets wrecked, and everyone's like, "What the hell's going on?" Like running around, shouting, screaming. And,
I can't remember a train scene.
There's a train scene, and then at the end of the train scene, they make love, and it's like nothing's happened. It's not like you're like, oh man.
Do you know what? I'm so already going off track, but every time James Bond gets on a train, I get so nervous because something happens. All the way back to like From Russia with Love, and I think that's the one with a huge train fight scene.
Is that the one where he gets thrown out of the...
I think so, yeah. He could be in a car and he's fine. He could be on a plane, generally he's fine. But being on a train, that generally means there's going to be someone's going to sneak in or break through the wall or something crazy like that. Doesn't he fight Jaws on a train at some point as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, James Bond on a train. It's just yeah, you expect there to be a fight. So when he stepped on a train for a split second in this film, I was like, wait, what? No, another train fight, and then he got off again. The rest of the Daniel Craig films, Casino Royale, when I watched it, I didn't fall in love with Daniel Craig or his version of James Bond, but what it did do is it introduced me to the books, and from there, that's when I realised that James Bond, his depiction of James Bond is actually very similar to the books.
Yes, that's right.
So for me, I would say Daniel Craig and Timothy Dalton are the most James Bonds, whereas all the rest are a little bit. They're a little bit caricature. They are that sort of more campy Austin Powers-esque version of James Bond.
I think
No. I know, no. But they're more that way than they are this serious book James Bond. I'm not saying that Doctor No is a campy film.
No, I agree with
but
you.
Comparatively, like it's a much more. There's two sides to James Bond, isn't there? There's this really stark, serious film, and then there's these really fun.
Well,
I'm thinking about that one in Diamonds Are Forever where he drives that red car over the river and does that flippy twist, and there's that really large sheriff.
yeah.
You know the guy I mean?
Yeah.
So you got that whole side of James Bond as well.
That's the thing I was going to say. That's mainly Roger Moore. Like Roger Moore's James Bond was mainly comic relief, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
He had a little bit of that in Sean Connery, but then Roger Moore just took that and just went full. And then like you said, it took like Timothy Dalton to bring it back to the more serious, to be more accurate to the books.
It does depend on what you want, though, because it's Timothy Dalton's villains, arguably, were a bit more boring. Whereas, and I say that, and the Timothy Dalton movies are my two favourites. But compared to the Maniacs that some of the other James Bonds go up against, like that is the way those James Bonds have all gone. And then Daniel Craig's a bit funny because they've gone both ways. Like, he's super dark and super serious, but there is this really big villain lurking in the background with we'll talk about it later, but the big mega base. When we did get to that base, it reminded me of the Moonraker, I think, where they had that underground monorail. It kind of felt a little bit like that, big bunker underground, hidden in a mountainside. What did you think of? What do you think about the musical callback right at the beginning?
I didn't really know.
Did you notice it?
No. What?
So the film, if you ignore the very first film,
Yep.
The film basically started with they were coming into that town where they were setting fire to all the secrets, and they had the music from On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, they did.
We have all the time in the world. And it was at that moment, because I'd been struggling. I'd been struggling with the film in the opening scene, because that opening scene was so dark, wasn't it?
What the action scene?
So the opening scene where it was the girl in the the girl and the mother in that cabin, and then the guy came to kill them. And like for a minute I was like, am I watching a James Bond film, or is this like a horror movie? It felt something more darker than a James Bond film.
Did you think it was stupid that he had the mask on? The villain guy had the mask on to hide the fact that he hasn't really aged. Because apparently it's been like that little girl then became the woman that James Bond falls in love, but then the villain is like the same age as the little girl, so it doesn't,
I mean, I suppose that might be a practical reason why they put him in a mask, but I think the in-universe reason is because his face was so messed up from, I don't know what reason, but it looked like his face was burnt.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was as a result of what her dad did to him. I didn't get the impression that her dad killed. Oh, sorry, her dad killed his family. He didn't say whether or not he did anything to him directly, but I mean, it's a thing, isn't it? They used the mask as a memory recall later on, so how they would have done that without the mask would have been interesting. It also, I mean, having the mask, it kept her from recognizing him, so he was able to sneak up on her and talk to her without her knowing, and then revealing who he was when he did. But yeah, so watching that bit, it was like, this just feels so weird. I'm not used to James Bond being this sort of like horror and like scary in a way. It was like suspenseful in ways that James Bond isn't. We hit the scene where they're driving in that lovely Aston DB5. Do you know the sound design on that? I was thinking, just as it was driving down the mountainside, and just that roar of the engine, it was like, oh, you're just tugging at all the right heartstrings right there. Like, we know it's absurd that James Bond has this car, but we know why it's here. It's pure fan service at this point. But it sounded absolutely lovely. And then that music came in, and what I liked about it is because it kind of, I don't. It's really interesting because in I'm trying to remember all my films. I'm trying to remember all the books. The callback to On Her Majesty's Secret Service in that film, it's in that book, and maybe it's in the film as well. But I don't. The books and the films aren't 1-to-1. In the book, that's not long after Vesper dies in Casino Royale, and that's when he's dealing with her death. And then you have that scene in that town where he's dealing with her death, or rather, he tries to, and then gets blown up. So, what did you think of the what goes on in that town? So, the people who found him there, how do you think they knew he was there?
Well, he sort of suspected that it might be his lover, that girl, that betrayed him. But I don't know, because I suspected the same thing when
It was heavily implied that it was her that betrayed
yeah,
him.
yeah, and I ultimately was like, yeah, it's her. It's gotta be. There's no one else.
But it wasn't.
No.
But it wasn't. So how did they know they were there? Or was Blofeld did he just have someone waiting by Vesper's grave for James Bond to eventually come?
Well, he must have had someone tracking him, and then it was just like, when there comes a point to take him out, then that's the way to do it, by blowing up the grave and trying to blow him up as well.
I do think it's interesting though. James Bond was hit with a small bomb, and you could see how disorientated he was in how much he could see or hear. And I know it's James Bond, and he's James Bond. You know, James Bond is like super cool and the best, and you know you can't kill him. And how many guys were going after him? Probably about
7.
there's
8.
about 7 or 8 to begin with. You know, there was like the 5 in the car, the guy on the bike, and there's a couple of others going on, and yet he still managed to evade them. So he's like, he's so obviously he's got plot armor on him, but they're also saying like James Bond is so much better than these goons that even when he's been like, you know, partially disabled, you know, he can't see very well, he can't hear very well, he's like winded, everything. He can still think lightning quick. He still does mad stuff, jumping off the side of the bridge, holding on to the wire, and can still do things like pull you off a bike and steal your bike and XYZ.
I don't know. For me, it wasn't the best opening that he's done.
Was it in Casino Royale where he was just cutting between him and M talking, and he was chasing some guy across a roof in probably in Africa somewhere?
Yeah,
That was a pretty intense opening, wasn't it?
yeah, that was a pretty intense. This one, I think the main highlight was the gun, when he shoots the gun and he goes round in a circle and starts shooting using the gun.
Right. So in the car. So
Yeah.
So that was quite nice how they utilized the tricks in the car, because I think that's something that James Bond had been missing for a while, was all the tricks and the gadgets
in the Daniel Craig films.
Yeah. And I think that was something that they very much wanted to bring back for this film, because you can see it in the DB5 and you can see it in the Q scenes later on. They're not just practical, but they're kind of whimsical. And again, do you know what? That was a very intense scene as well, wasn't it? Where they're both in that car and they're just being hammered by the bullets, and the glass is holding up, the glass is holding up, the glass is holding up, and then she's just screaming at him like, James, do something, and he's just like blood pumping, like whatever, and then
Well, he's on adrenaline. He's just been blown up, jumped off a bridge, been running around fighting people. He's completely lost it, and he's just like, right, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna do this, and then and he starts, and then the music,
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that part was cool, and then he, if I remember correctly, he abandoned her.
Yep. So once they get free of everything that's going on, that's when they kind of stop off at the train station, and he basically dumps her onto a train, and then stays at the platform. And then I think that's when we get to the titles.
Yeah.
And that's when we cut to 5 years later, and obviously both of them have gone their own separate ways, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, he left the agency, or
so
he hasn't been in the agency.
He didn't retire because did he retire?
I think they got rid of him. They were just like, no need for you, wasn't it? Oh no! The next scene was the actual.
The next scene was the break-in. The break-in scene,
yeah. And that was very odd as well, because they had that scientist guy, and then he wasn't sure, is he going along with it, or is he getting blackmailed, or what's going on here?
Did you notice the British comedian who got a very, very small role in that scene?
I think I did it at the time, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I was watching it, and there was this side profile of someone. I was like, I know who that is. That's Hugh Dennis. Not the sort of person you expect to show up in a James Bond film. I don't know if the lady scientist who he was talking to was a similar sort of comedian, British comedian or something. But I definitely recognise Hugh Dennis. But yeah, that scientist who was kind of abducted.
Yeah, I don't know if he was abducted or not.
He seemed very...
with it. Like, I know what's going on. It's okay.
Yeah, like he wasn't.
And you're like, okay.
He was slightly almost playing along with them, but not fully. It was very strange. And then
yeah, because he double crossed them.
Well,
at the end,
he did in the end, yeah. But it's like the scene with the elevator as well, which was such a weird scene, because I know the guy is like, he's a chemist scientist, not a physics scientist, and I know there's differences, but he's like, there's no lift, and they throw him down the lift shaft, and he gets to the bottom and he stops, and it's like, those red and green dots are like magnets to kind of hold him in, and he gets to the bottom and he's like, oh yeah, magnets, as if being a like, on one hand it's like, okay, like technology supposedly jumped forward in 5 years, but on the other hand, there's no way there's magnets that strong, and he as a scientist would know that. But again, that was just one of those scenes that kind of like dumbed down for the audience. Oh yeah, magnets. That's how they managed to stop him in midair.
Isn't he? The next scene is like, isn't James Bond? He gets contacted by.
Yeah. So we see James Bond, and he's in retirement essentially, whether it's official or not. And again, this is another time where I get nervous for James Bond. Like, he's been on a boat, he's coming back in, and he's going back to his villa, whatever you call that place he's living in.
It looked good. It looked nice.
It was very nice. His bedroom's a separate building, a short walk outside. That felt very James Bondy. That whole property, this whole section, it felt like a traditional James Bond, because it was in the Caribbean. It was very warm. This felt very traditional James Bond. But I was constantly thinking, oh, like someone's hiding in his bathroom or something. While he's been out on the boat, someone's ransacked, found something or something. But I don't think it was that. I think he just went out on his own, didn't he? And then he was followed. Yeah, he was followed by Felix on the way to the bar.
The thing is, I thought he died in one of the previous James Bonds, and I was like, oh, he's alive. I didn't realise he's still alive. I was like, oh, didn't he die in like Quantum of Solace or something?
I don't remember this version of Felix Leiter being in any of the films other than Casino Royale. He was.
I swear he was in Quantum of Solace.
What I'm saying is, like Quantum of Solace, I've only seen once, and that was a year or two after it came out. Quantum of Solace I've seen once. Spectre I've seen once, Skyfall I've seen twice. So I'm kind of struggling to remember if Felix Leiter was in any of them. I don't think he wasn't in Skyfall. I know that. I
No,
don't
he
think
wasn't
he
in.
was in Spectre.
No, he was definitely in Quantum of Solace because I think he had to make like a deal. He had to help him make a deal or something. But the thing is, it's like
That's his job though in James Bond is to die. Like that's his role.
yeah, I do want to say it.
I think it's in Timothy Dalton's. He gets killed in the shark scene, and that is one of them that's lifted from the books. I don't know if he dies in any of his other appearances in James Bond, but that was something that my wife was saying. It's like, isn't that? She was like, oh, I feel sorry for anyone who plays Felix Leiter because it's basically his job is to just die in every film, and it's like she's not that far off. Like his job is to basically be around, help for a bit, and then die.
But the thing is, it's like they killed him off because then you're like, oh, you know what's coming near the end. Because it's like, why would you keep a character? Well, to be honest, they kept some of the other characters, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't think Felix's death foreshadowed anything else. I think that was just inevitable for a James Bond era coming to an end. So Felix Leiter always dies. We know this is Daniel Craig's last film, so he's not an actor who's going to carry that character over. Because that's the funny thing, is like, I know we're kind of breaking a bit away from it, but it's like we're in the Daniel Craig era of James Bond. Daniel Craig carried M and Q over from Pierce Brosnan's era.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then M got
taken
because
over. Dame Judi Dench was M, and she was also M during Pierce Brosnan. Was there what the hell is his name? Basil Fawlty.
Oh, John Cleese.
Yeah, did he do Q in any of the earlier Daniel Craig, or was there just no Q in those films?
No, I don't think there was.
Maybe there wasn't a Q.
I don't think there was a Q.
Yeah, because actually, yes, I'm gonna say there probably wasn't, because I remember when this new younger Q came in. I think part of it was that it was the return of Q, so he must have been missing.
That was in,
so maybe it's just M, but
Skyfall, wasn't it? He returned.
Yes, yeah. He was definitely in Skyfall. I remember that. It is really interesting how James Bond does this thing where some actors keep their characters between James Bonds, and yet we're talking about this current James Bond as if it's going to die. So like the next time there's a James Bond film is what's his name? Ralph Fiennes. I'm terrible with actors' names. The guy who plays M currently is like Renault. James Bond.
Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes. Is Ralph Fiennes going to be in the next James Bond film?
There you go.
Or will they have a new M?
It depends on the contracts as well. If they're signed up for that.
Well, obviously that does. Yes. Yeah. I get it from a practical standpoint. But do you think they'll wipe the slate clean and get whole new actors, or do you think M might stay, Moneypenny might stay, Q might stay? Because particularly Moneypenny and Q, I think, are very good characters, and I would like them to stay, unless they're going to do something totally different with the next James Bond.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you like the 007 character in this film?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I don't think she's James Bond, no, but she was a good character.
For me, she was so annoying. Like, I just...
Why?
Because every minute she was like, oh, I'm 007.
Yeah, but that's not a problem. Why is, it's just a number. Why is that a problem?
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I got really frustrated within the film. And then finally she realizes, like, I'll give it back to James Bond, to give him back his title. But she was so unhappy throughout the film, like being, I'm 007. And you're like, okay, whatever. It's just a number. Like, don't panic. And you're like, it made a big fuss about it, and it was just so annoying.
Probably because she had big shoes to fill in taking on that number. And, there's two other factors in there. One, she's a woman, and two, she's black. Like, those are things that would have hindered her career in that world. So the fact that she got that number and then James comes sauntering back in, she's, at first she's going to, obviously she's going to feel a bit, not precious, but she's going to feel maybe a little bit threatened. And the other thing is that she is the total opposite of James in a good way. He does everything the way he wants to. she was doing everything by the book. She was saying, capture or kill. What do you want? How do you want me to do this? That scene when she was almost caught by the police, and the way she exited that scene was handled with a grace that James Bond would never have done. Do you remember what she did? Where she
shot up the lamppost or something.
the scaffolding was coming down, and there was some power lines or something, and I think she hit it with a flare gun or something like that caused it to spark and give her cover to escape, as opposed to what James Bond would have done, which would have been to push through and escape on the other side. So I think she's a very good character. She would not make a very good James Bond.
I thought they could have done a little bit more, because I thought, like, it looked like to me, like, near the end, I was like, because she goes off to do something else, and James Bond is, like, in danger, and there was a point where he needed someone, and I think she does turn up, but I was hoping that, like, she would actually, like, betray, you know what I mean, and be one of the bad guys, because
I think, they've done that before though, but she was already on her way to where James Bond was. That's how James knew what was going on. So I don't think, if she was there, she would have helped, but she wasn't there until she was there, so she couldn't have helped, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the thing is, when I saw that, instead of like the way he looked at it, it's like, oh, she's coming towards me. It's like, I must be in danger, because she must be coming to help me. But the way
no. He's like, oh, I thought she was tracking Lucifer, and they said, because they didn't know where James Bond was at that point. He hadn't told anyone where he was. So he said, why is she coming? Why is she near me? And that's when they say, where are you? Are you in Norway? And that's when he realizes that she is tracking Lucifer, and the reason she's coming to his location is because that's where Lucifer is coming for him.
Yeah. I see. The thing is, I misread that, because I was thinking, like, I was thinking, she's coming towards him because I don't know, she's betrayed him or something. And he's like looking at it, he's like, what the hell? Why has she gone off the track, like, completely? And he's coming towards me.
Yeah, they have done it before, but I don't think that was what they were going for in this one.
No. I realised, but I was like, oh, I wish they did do that. I was like, that would have been more interested in her just whining every 5 minutes, saying, why am I not, 007? Why am I not going on?
But that's not what she was doing. She wasn't like that at all. She wasn't. But she wasn't whining.
She was whining and moaning.
She was showing how good she was as a 00 in her actions.
I'm 007. And you're like, okay, take it. I'm 007. And in the end, because she had to, she was like, look, can you reinstate James Bond as 007? And then he dies, and I don't know. Does she get it back? The status? No one.
Well,
really
not
knows.
if there isn't another film. If she's not in another film, but I think you're reading her character slightly wrong. I think she's the ideal agent to MI6 in terms of not causing. She gets the job done without causing trouble. Where what James Bond does is he gets the job done, but leaves M to deal with the collateral damage or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you think even back to, I'm thinking about Pierce Brosnan's one where he's always slipping away and going off and doing his own thing, and he just uses that trust that he and M have always had to deal with it afterwards. Like he's a fire first, beg for forgiveness later, where that's her name, Nomi. Where she's a bit more analytical of a situation and will try and deal with things in the nicest way possible, but will escalate when she needs to, if that makes sense. So she won't escalate earlier than she needs to, but she will when she has to. She would make if James Bond was written for her, it would be a very boring film, but it's probably in the best interest of MI6 to mostly have agents like her instead of agents like James Bond.
Well, what I will say though is, what did you think to Remy Malek?
I thought that was fantastic.
Did you think it was?
I thought he was really good. He really fitted the role.
I tell you what, I thought I was so let
Why?
down.
What? Why?
Because he didn't have a lot of screen.
No. That's not
presence.
his fault though.
Oh yeah, of course, but it is part of the film, and you know, to be a good villain, not of course. I'm not saying that that's his fault. Of course not. But in terms of the film, yeah, the villain was very, in my opinion, very weak. I couldn't really quite like. He wanted revenge.
Yeah, so what didn't help is that this film had two villains, didn't it? So we
Kind
start
of,
off thinking
yeah.
it's all about Blofeld, but then it's actually about Lucifer or whatever his name is. It's something like the
Remy Malek, just call him.
No, because his
Remy.
character. We're not talking about Rami. We're talking about the character.
I know, but I don't know the character's name,
It's
so I'm just gonna call him
it's a
Remy.
misspelling of Lucifer. They're basically calling him the
Okay,
devil, so it's like Lucifer or something.
Lucifer.
Lutz, like
Yeah,
there's an extra T in there. Lucifer. Um,
Lucifer.
yeah, sort of like that. I thought Rami playing the character was really good.
Yeah, I thought
He played the role really well.
I think he played the role good, but he just didn't have enough material.
No, I liked the way I did like the way they did play him. With the exception of the first scene, because obviously I didn't like that, and now we know it's him. I know why they put it in there. They had to put it in there to set everything up, but I still don't like that scene. But the way they kind of showed off his super island base, that's when I was talking earlier about the kind of the concrete underground base of like GoldenEye, Moonraker, all those sort of classic James Bond films. I think that's when they decided, oh, we've got to have at least one of these in Daniel Craig's era. I liked the poison herb garden. If you are anywhere near Scotland and the north, I think it's in Cumbria. I mean Northumberland. There's an English house. It's called Alnwick Castle, and it's actually where Harry Potter was filmed during the Quidditch scenes and anything with that set. But what they have in their grounds, in their gardens, is they've got a poison garden, and you can go on a tour. It's not a massive garden. It's like one of those sort of like walled off gardens that you find in old English and Scottish houses. But they've got all these poisonous plants, and they walk you through and they say, right, don't touch this, don't touch that. You can touch that because it's only poisonous if you eat it, kind of stuff like that. And it ranges from stuff that you would genuinely find in an average English garden. So like my parents, in our garden growing up, we had at least 2 plants that were poisonous. There's one where, I don't know any of the names, but there's this one where the leaves are, on their own they're fine, but if you mash them up, as in like if you're a sheep and you were eating them and mashing it up in the mouth, it produces a poison, one that begins with A, but it produces a poison, and that that's pretty bad. So we had that growing up. We also had another. Well, that's another question. There was another plant that was off a tree. It was a berry type plant, and that again was like, don't eat that.
Strawberries?
Yeah, something like strawberries, but yeah. So this place in Alnwick Castle is basically that, but it's on steroids, quite literally. They've got everything, things that would like make you sick to things that will kill you, and they have had, I think, at least 1, possibly 2 employees who have like been scratched and died from the workplace. Yeah. Yeah,
Sod that.
but you're a gardener for that place. You kind of know what you're getting into. It is also the only place in the UK where it is legal to grow weed. So they have a very old strain of weed. I think he said it was taken from a strain from the 80s. So even if you did steal a few leaves of it and smoked it, you probably wouldn't get high because it's compared to what there is now. It's just very weak, very mellow kind of stuff. But that's what Lucifer had. He had this garden full of different poisonous plants, and there's just something intriguing in all of that. Obviously, he's using it for horrific things, and that scene where he had, what was the girl's name?
Jennifer, wasn't it? I can't remember. Sorry, mate. James Bond's girlfriend.
No Time to Die, child.
Oh, the child. Oh, yeah. I was going to come on to that. I forgot the child's name. So apparently that...
Well, hang on. We'll come to that. We'll come to that in a bit. So the child was named Mathilda. Is French, so probably Matilda.
Yeah, Matilda.
So So
Right.
the mother's name is Madeline, and I think she's called Linda or something. In like it's abbreviated like Linda or something. And then the child's Matilda. And then the way that when he was taking her through the garden, and it was like that, like super suspenseful because like the mother's being held back by that one-eyed guy and everything, and she's reaching out to touch that plant, and he's not stopping her. He's not stopping her until she stop, and he's like, "That plant is to make children obey their parents," or something really creepy like that. But he played that character so well because it was off the wall. And I guess to be slightly unfair to Rami Malek, you can kind of say it's a bit of a not a typecast, but he played what's his face from Queen in Bohemian.
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury.
And again, it's this guy who's just a bit off the wall, like just a bit eccentric, if that's the right word.
Well, he plays. You ever seen Mr. Robot?
I have not.
It's like he's like completely different. Where he's like completely closed in.
Oh, is he the main character in Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Again, I'm not very good. Mr. Robot's kind of been on my list because everyone talks about how good the IT in it is, but I just never picked it up. I didn't realise that he was in it. Never mind the main, but okay, I will think about that.
But yeah, no, like lately, like his acting has been more. He's playing characters that. But the thing is, I think in this film, he's kind of like a cross between someone who's ready to explode and someone who's quite
Calm.
relaxed with their thoughts.
Yeah.
He's very calm, and he's like, oh, I got to think about this for a sec. One thing I was going to say to you is like, at one point he manages to kidnap the little girl, and then she's like, "Let me go, let me go."
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, you want to go?" It's like, "Yeah." "Oh, off you go then. Goodbye." I was like, "Oh, okay. Why'd you do that?" I was like,
I mean, I guess that comes down to the fact that he only needed her to manipulate James Bond.
I think the writers were like, how are we gonna do this if he's still got
Oh right.
the
I
girl?
mean, look. Do you want to talk about it in the story sense or in the writer's sense? Like from the character's point of view,
he had his use.
She's no longer useful. James Bond isn't manipulated by this child, and even will pretend to be manipulated by the child, but actually what he was doing was crouching down to his third hidden firearm and then shoots all his guards whilst they disappear into the floor. So the child has bitten him, doesn't want to be there, is going to be even more of a pain and struggling and everything. So whatever, they were leaving, I guess. I don't really know.
Yeah, he was leaving.
They were leaving, yeah. So probably would have just been basically abandoned on the island if everyone else, if James Bond and Madeline were
missiles,
killed.
weren't there, that were going to get sent?
Well, not at this point, no.
No, you're right. Not at that point. It was a little bit late, wasn't it?
Yeah. At this point, everything's just still to play.
Oh, didn't he? Wasn't it like a self-destruct or something? There was something. There was like a time limit, and he had to do some sort of things in that room.
No, you jumped right to the end of the movie there. Like there are missiles, and there is like a countdown. It's not really a countdown timer, but like the missiles are on their way. But at this point, I think there was some ships coming in. I guess they were coming in to pick up some more of the weapon.
I remember now. He went up there. He did come up there earlier to open up the door, didn't he? And he was like, "How the hell do I work this machinery to open this door so that the missiles could come in?"
No, again, you're right at the end of the film.
Yeah, a little bit. I am a little bit on the later side.
Right. So this is what happens when we're jumping around.
So do you remember when Phoenix gets? Okay, go on.
So Bond and Nomi, 00 and 00, they boat in. They go up. They go through. They see everyone's harvesting something in the water.
They're doing something weird.
Yep. Then they go up to the laboratory. They find the scientist guy again. So she's kind of holding him hostage whilst James Bond goes off to find Madeline, Matilda, and Lucifer. Then there's that whole scene where Lucifer is they're sat at that low table and James Bond is crouching down and does that shooty thing. And then the two of them fall through the floor through a trapdoor. and then James Bond has to chase them down. At that point, there's a whole load of explosives in that room with all the DNA. At that point, that's when Nomi and the scientist guy, they start to go for a walk. Someone falls, I think she shoots a guard or something like that, and someone falls into that liquid and instantly dies. And that's when Nomi's like, do you know what? I don't need you anymore. It's your time to die. And then kicks him off. He falls into the water and he's done. And then it's at this point that they're trying to get, they're chasing after Matilda. And then this is the weirder part than your thing when you're talking about the writers bit where they kind of just didn't know what to do with her, or they had to get her somewhere. She was hiding under a table, conveniently in the room that they were just sort of running through as they were discussing their plan. And she's like, Mama, I'm here. Dodo, I've lost Dodo. Dodo's the little bear she had.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was, I think that was the scene that was slightly more obvious of what you were talking about than the previous scene, where she actually gets rid of him. Because I think where he gets rid of her, I think that kind of makes sense. He's trying to get off the island. I think they're heading towards a helicopter or something. She's just going to slow them down. Yeah, just what harm is a tiny little child going to do? So let them off, and then somehow she gets under a table in a crowded room full of people with no one noticing. But anyway, they get back together, and then they boat off to another island, whilst James Bond stays behind, and that's when he starts going up towards the bunker doors. Now, this bit is actually where the film starts to bookend. So at the beginning, I think there's two bookends to this film. One is the song, and the other, do you remember at the beginning when Vesper's grave is bombed, and we were talking earlier about how James Bond was like disabled partially? As he's fighting up and he's taking out all these guards left, right, and centre, and then there's that really funny scene where someone throws a grenade down. So he picks a grenade up, throws it back up, and blows their face off, and then 5 more grenades come down, and then he kind of gets disabled by an explosion. So he's now sort of like he's not 100% now. He's lost a bit of his hearing. He's lost a bit of his his sight, his awareness of everything. Oh, and I don't know the exact order, but this is the point where the guy with one eye.
Oh yeah, that guy.
He gets his right, and I had a real umbrage with this scene because
he gets taken out, doesn't he? I can't remember.
Yeah, so James Bond uses the watch. So James Bond always has a watch that does something, whether it's got a magnet on to take off a woman's dress, or it's got a laser in it to get through a metal door. This one was an EMP, and James Bond uses it to blow up the guy's eye, which blew up in his head and killed him. And I'm like, James Bond is wearing an in-ear transmitter. Like, if it was powerful enough to get someone's eye, it should be powerful enough to have at least taken out that transmitter, if not done some damage to James Bond. But, a split second later, James Bond was able to talk to Q. But whatever, it's James Bond. He can't die. We have to accept that. So that's, in the beginning, when he was almost killed, when there was that scene in that party, which we completely skipped over that, the party inspector, again, another callback to a Timothy Dalton film with that spotlight on James Bond. But that point where they were like, James Bond, ha ha ha, finally, we've killed you because we've put your DNA in this nanobot technology that we're going to kill you with. And then he doesn't die, but everyone else does. You know that he's not going to die because it's a James Bond film and you're only 40 minutes in. Anyway, back to the bunker scene. He's running up. That's when they get to the delicate scene where Q is saying, oh, you got to do everything in particular order and make sure you read the manual before you do it. And then James Bond is like, oh, I've done it.
Doesn't he have to get the door open or something? The bunker door.
So he has to get the bunker doors open because it's an old missile silo. And if the bunker doors are closed, the missiles they're sending ain't going to do jack.
I think
he opens the doors.
He does.
He does. He opens the doors. And then he goes outside.
And then it fails, though, doesn't it fail?
And as he's going outside, the doors start closing again.
And he's like, no. And then he starts running back up again.
No. Have you seen this film?
I have seen it. It's been a long time, though. Sorry.
So he goes outside, and basically it's reformed the fountain, that original fountain in the beginning. It's like he's closed the doors, poured all the water back in, and James Bond is kind of standing around. And then who shall appear behind him but Lucifer
Oh yeah, we're forgetting.
with a deagle
Oh god, yeah.
and shoots him 3 times. So James Bond is now severely injured. Like not just the grenades, the 5 grenades that hit him earlier, but he's now got 2 or 3 bullets in him.
Doesn't he say like, oh, if you kill me, then you're dead as well? Or something? It's like there's somehow he can stop it. What I can't. Does he not say anything to James Bond?
I don't remember. He might say that. I don't know. What he does do, Lucifer the whole time is holding a small vial of those nanobots.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So he says.
And what he does is
yeah.
he smashes it as they're fighting. He smashes it into James Bond's cheek, so they get inside him and they're starting. I don't know if they are actively killing him, but it basically means that James Bond is now infected. And I think that is something that I thought was quite funny, is that this film is about a pandemic. Not a virus pandemic, but they're nanobots. And they were about to release a film about a pandemic during the pandemic, which that might have been one of the reasons why it was delayed for a bit. I don't know. But that must have really stunk for those guys, because they're like, oh, how are we going to sell this film? Well, you don't tell them there's a pandemic in it, I suppose. That's the easy answer. Or maybe they had to do some reshoots to change it from... because it was conveniently, they were nanobots, not an actual virus.
Yeah.
So maybe they had to go back and reshoot a few scenes to change the wordings. But anyway... so then after James Bond snaps his hand off, steals the gun off him and shoots Lucifer in the head, after he has been shot a couple more times, I think, at this point as well, that's when he trudges back up, opens the bomb doors, and is calling through to Q to get the missile to come in. And you get that really emotional scene with him.
And he's standing there and you're
Madeline.
like, oh, here it comes, bang. Oh.
And I do believe that's the first time James Bond has died. I don't think he's died before, has he?
No, he had his wife died, didn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, his wife's died, Felix has died, everyone's died, but not James Bond. So, I mean, that led me to think, who do you think, and you don't have to answer it specifically, who do you think next James Bond is going to be?
Well...
Because I wonder if killing James Bond has opened up, canonically, if that has opened up the ability for it to be a woman or a person of colour, because that's always something that's been sort of like plaguing James Bond as much as it's been plaguing Doctor Who. Is that it's always a rich white dude who's playing him.
But that's the character.
And I wonder if Felix Leiter was white with blonde hair, floppy blonde hair. James Bond was not written to have an Aston Martin. He was written to have a Bentley. Like, these things can change.
Well, we already know it's not going to be a woman.
Do we know who?
They've come out, the companies and all that. They've said it's not going to be a woman. It doesn't fit what James Bond is.
Well, because that's the other thing, is that there was a couple of points in the movie where another thing about James Bond is his treatment of women, and that hasn't been in this film at all. Well, there's that. I mean, there's that. Is it Goldfinger with Sean Connery and Pussy Galore, where he basically, I'm pretty sure Pussy Galore was supposed to be a lesbian, and he kind of like gets the lesbian out of her or something. Like, there's that scene in the barn which everyone talks about, and it's like, well, that's super creepy.
Yeah, but that's...
I don't know if you can really justify it with the 1950s. Like,
no, that was 60s, 70s, wasn't it? That's the thing. Like, back then, it might be sociably acceptable, but you look at it now and you're like, okay.
Right, but what do you do with a character who historically is like that? And I think in recent James Bond films, they've tried to change that aspect of James Bond without completely ripping it out, because you could have ripped it out entirely and just left it outside, but they didn't remove those scenes. There was the scene where, the scene in, I don't know what city they were in, but in that city of the secrets, where with him and Madeline, and presumably where the daughter was conceived, there was that scene. But because it's her and they've got history with the previous film, that's a pure 100% consensual sort of like relationship at that point. And then the only other time it might have cropped up is when he met Nomi and they kind of scooted off from the bar. And then obviously that kind of turned around really quickly and nothing came of it. Because actually when they had that CIA girl in, who actually I thought was really good,
She was, yeah, but they didn't do anything with her.
there was nothing. Basically, she was undressing him accidentally, but there was nothing from James Bond to kind of like chat her up in a really weird way.
Yeah,
Like,
I know what you mean.
he flirted with her a little bit, but that's because she was currently unbuttoning his shirt. But beyond that, he kind of left it. He didn't do much, and I think he was really incredibly respectful of her throughout the scenes that they were together as well.
Well, the thing is, with most of these James Bond films, it's like at that point in the film, he hasn't got time to mess around as much.
Oh, but it's James Bond. He always does. Like, think about those. Think about the films where
But they're early on in the films, like where he's not actually got a real motive yet. He's still like maybe he's investigating, but at that point he was there to what was he at the bar? Like he wanted to find out if Blofeld was secretly not in his cell, and he was like, how is he actually getting messages out of his cell if he's in his cell and organising the group, and he wanted to find more about the micro virus thing. But anyway, your question about who should be the next James Bond, I would say it's going to be Tom Hardy. But he should be good. Oh, yeah, even Idris Elba.
Idris
but
Elba
he's too
is
old.
that. See, he's the actor who they were talking about 10 years ago. But again, yeah, I think
He's too old now.
we looked him up.
He would be
he's
perfect.
49 at this point.
Yeah, he can't do 3-4 film. Like maybe like even Tom Hardy. Like
Tom Hardy's
would like him
44,
to
so he's not
be-
that much younger.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I
Like,
can't believe that's it, because that's the other thing. Daniel Craig looked noticeably older in this film.
Oh yeah.
I don't
definitely.
know. I don't know why it was noticeable, but
Because he's old. He's getting near 50, isn't he?
53.
He's 53. Yeah. Well, he looks in incredible shape.
Oh,
for
he does.
53, let's
He
be fair.
absolutely does. But just in this film,
He doesn't like. He looks in his 40s, like, but you can tell he's getting. He's getting bigger. His face
yeah,
is
yeah,
not
yeah.
as.
That was something. That was something I noticed in one of those films. He kind of came out. He's like, "Oh, there's a 50-year-old's gut. Like, no matter how much you work out, that's coming. That's coming."
Wow, I wouldn't say it's that.
No, well, it wasn't that
actually,
bad, but
but
it's inevitable.
like, okay, would you take? Have you seen Roger Moore's last James Bond? I mean,
What was his? Which one was his last one?
He must be like.
View to
He
a
must
Kill?
be like. The one with Christopher Walken, and they end up in a balloon in like Los Angeles and they start fighting. But he was like, I swear he's like nearly 60s or something. Something ridiculous. It was like, and he was still like with those with the young Bond girls, and he's but yeah, but he's still he could like. If there, I don't know, like if they didn't die, would you take another film with Daniel Craig? Would you be happy if they said, oh, if he didn't die, and they didn't go on the route that what they did, would you be happy with another film?
I wasn't unhappy that he was in this film. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not. I wasn't like, oh, it's Daniel Craig's time to go. Like, it's.
But what is it? 2016 was the last one, and then 2020. So he must have shot it in 2019.
I mean, they don't have like they could have shot it before the last one came out. Like, that's not abnormal.
Well, yeah, I don't know when they shot it, but it must be around about 2018-19 for it to come out in 2020. Well, it was supposed to come out in 2020. But if you I looked at some of his interviews now, it doesn't look that different to what he looked in the film. So he must be keeping himself in shape, but it doesn't really matter. He's dead now as a character, so they're going to look forward.
Spoilers,
I'm just saying,
guys. James Bond has died.
Well, it's interesting though to say like you look at the actor and you're like, can he still do it? Like, because I think Roger Moore is was the same age as Sean Connery, or even older than Sean Connery, and Roger Moore replaced Sean Connery because he was like they said, oh, Sean Connery's had it, he's too old, and then they brought in Roger Moore.
Right, 1984.
He's gonna check.
Take away 1927. Is that right? 57. Yeah, 57.
57. Gee.
It was 57 when A View to a Kill was released. So maybe 55, 56 when they were filming.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But James Bond wasn't as physically active back then. Even the action scenes, the fight scenes, they were a lot more stage combat than film combat. So a lot of those big, wide punches, stuff like that. And obviously at that point, they probably use more stunt doubles than Daniel Craig is using.
I was going to say they use a lot more stunt doubles, but
I mean, with Roger Moore's hair, it's probably a lot easier to use stunt doubles than Daniel Craig.
what I would say, the one film, I know everyone doesn't really like Pierce Brosnan as James Bond.
I don't think that's not what they didn't like. Is that he only had one good Bond film, and all the others were just mediocre at best. If he had better stories, he was a good Bond. He just didn't have good stories.
Well, okay, hold on. So I'm predicting that you're going to say GoldenEye was his best film,
Critically claimed as his best film, yes.
and you would agree.
Only because I've only seen his other. I liked Die Another Day. Genuinely, I did like that film. That's the one with Halle Berry in it.
Oh, the latest one.
Yeah, his final
the last one.
I did like that one. The one I meh about is the one on the boat. The world world is not enough. No.
Oh no.
What's the one?
No, that's the one I'm trying to think of now.
I know it's Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies. See, for me, when you say that doesn't have a good plot,
I'm not saying it doesn't have a good plot compared to GoldenEye, which was iconic.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta admit, GoldenEye was a good film.
I think that's probably the problem, is that GoldenEye was so great that, particularly those middle two, they kind of just wallowed a little bit. I don't know if Die Another Day critically was any better than the second and third one, but personally, there's a part of me that almost prefers Die Another Day to GoldenEye, but I will say the reason for that is I think Die Another Day is the first James Bond film that I watched start to finish. All the other James Bond films I'd only sort of half seen.
I enjoyed Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies. The reason I enjoyed that film is because the villain was not a generic "I'm just gonna kill everyone." He was trying to create a war. I can't remember if it was the Russians or he was trying to create a war, but he was doing it because he was a news organization, and by reporting on the news, or he was supplying guns and stuff as well, he could profit from it. What a great idea that is. It's not like the same old "I'm just a bad guy, I'm just going to kill everyone." And it's like
No, and I think that's actually quite similar to Timothy Dalton's villains. They were grounded in reality in ways that Die Another Day isn't. So like Timothy Dalton had the Cold War story with the celloist and the defector. The License to Kill was the one with the drugs baron and the articulated truck lorry that was doing a wheelie whilst on fire. And I know that's partly why people don't like those films as much, is because they're not as exciting as Ernst Blofeld or Goldfinger, all those sort of like big villains who've got big plans, and it's like, oh, you're just defeating some drugs guys. Sometimes it's again, it's a difference between the Daniel Craig films where they're a lot more dark and all the really campy films. If every film is big, I don't know, it's like sometimes it's like in TV, you need the smaller episodes to make the bigger episodes feel bigger. It's like having that contrast. You can still, as long as they're not crap, you can still enjoy the movie. So they should always be good. At the very least, they should be a 4 out of 5, and then some films are going to be a 5 out of 5. Don't aim for a 3 out of 5. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but generally, I think this film is probably one of the better James Bonds. But as a film as itself, I would just say it's a good James Bond film. But as a film itself, without being a James Bond film, I probably give it like a 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10.
It requires context. It's a difficult film. You wouldn't be able to watch it without knowing the previous.
Yes, you have to watch Spectre, because I kind of regretted that. I remember watching Spectre, and some of the like Skyfall,
I don't know if you need to go as far back as Skyfall, but there is definitely between Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, there is a tie over. I think each film feeds into the next, but there's not necessarily a huge overarching skipping or going between more than two films, but definitely need to have. The problem is, like, you need to see Spectre to see this film, but you need to see Skyfall to see Spectre. You need Quantum of Solace to see Skyfall, and then Casino Royale to see Quantum of Solace. So that's kind of, to watch this film, you really have to watch 10 hours, 12 hours of James Bond before you get there.
But the thing is, like, I don't know, like, because there's been issues, like you said, writer strikes. There's been money problems throughout the years trying to finance the film.
Well, the writer's strike was 12 years ago. Like, that's not a
Yeah,
problem anymore.
I'm saying this, but there's been a gap. There has been a gap with the films. So I think majority of the people have seen these films at one point. Like you said, I've seen this film once. I've seen this film twice. If you're British, you most likely have seen this film at some point because they've been on TV. Like, unless you've just made sure that you just stay away and not, watched it. And if you have some interest, you've probably seen it. But yeah, to actually watch this film and then you can try and you can understand it because you kind of remember what happens in the previous films, but you really are diving deep in your brain, thinking, yeah, I remember this character. Oh, okay, great. And then it does fit together, but yeah, it does help to probably watch the previous film or the previous films. Maybe just like you said, just the Spectre, and then watch this film.
Yeah, I can see that in the summer I might watch all of the Daniel Craig films in order. Also, when do you think Spectre came out?
Wasn't it 2016?
It's older than that.
Really? Is it 2015?
Yeah. Skyfall was 2012.
Right.
Quantum of Solace
2009? 8, 9?
I feel like Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace I haven't put onto my Plex. I don't know why. They might not, I'm pretty sure they're in the box that I have. Don't know why they're not.
Casino Royale was 2006.
Yeah, that was super early. Quantum of Solace must have been like 11, 2010 or 11. Oh no, if Skyfall was 2012, it must have been like 2009.
No, it's 2008.
2008, yeah. I went the wrong way with my calculations there. Who's the longest running? Has he beaten Sean Connery yet?
No. It's probably Roger Moore, isn't it? Like, what was it, 71 till 1985?
Daniel Craig overtakes Roger Moore this weekend to become cinema's longest serving James Bond. However, how many films? Because
yeah, he's done a lot.
Like, if he's done five films over 14 years, but Roger Moore did 6 over 13 years. Because it does feel like James Bond films have kind of slowed down a little bit. I mean, yeah, like I said, there was a huge gap between those two films.
There's writer strikes and there's money problems they've had to find out.
Yeah. Like, I almost forgot James Bond films were still kind of being made. Almost. I wasn't expecting the film to come out when it did. It's been so long, I just wasn't really aware of what was going on with it. What did you think of the title?
I keep forgetting it. No Time to Die.
I don't like it. I think, for one, I would like it. I wouldn't like it as much. No, I don't know how to phrase this. If James Bond wasn't killed in this film, I think it would be less of a problem. But you call the film No Time to Die, and then you actually kill him off. You're foreshadowing in the title of what's going to happen, and I just don't like that. I just don't think it's. I don't think it's a clever way to title a movie. I don't think it's fair to cinema goers, because it's like, if you know the title is No Time to Die, there's a certain point in the film where you're like, is he going to sacrifice himself? Is he going to get off in time? If you don't know what the title of the film is, you might expect him to still get off the island and fight for it. He's going to fight for his daughter now that he knows he has a daughter. But you know what the title is, and you're like, well, he's not. And it kind of ruins it a little bit. But that's the information they decided people should know before going in.
The good thing as well is it had a budget of 250 million to 301 million, and it made 774 million worldwide box office. I would say that's good because this film still released during the pandemic, where people were still a bit, cautious about getting back in the cinema. So at least we know, like, it's in a good place, James Bond, in terms of at least it's making profit. This film did make profit.
So you have some kind of confidence in the next film.
Oh yeah,
I think actually one of the most annoying things about James Bond is its ownership. James Bond is not on any streaming services ever anywhere. I tried to find some films earlier in the year, I think over Christmas. I was like, I just want to watch a James Bond film. And yes, it's like I've got all the DVDs and I've got them on Plex, but it's only at DVD quality. And it's like, they're not on Netflix. And I don't want to, like, the only thing you can do is you can buy or rent them from iTunes or Google or, wherever. And that's what I had to do. I had to buy No Time to Die on Apple. I wanted to own it. I didn't want to rent it. I don't like spending money on something that's not going to be around for a while. So I would rather pay for it and own it.
Well, it's kind of a weird one because the ITV used to have all the movies. They used to show them every weekend.
Didn't they? Yeah.
They had the license for a number of years, and but I think Sky's taken the license. I think they took it.
Yeah, I remember that now, because it used to be that if you were in the UK, you could watch you knew you would be able to watch a James Bond film over Christmas for free, and random Saturdays they would be a James Bond film. But now, because it's on Sky, you have to. It's not on free to air TV anymore.
I think it has gone back onto ITV. I think they have put something together, so it is as well as Sky. I think that because I remember like seeing, I think it was like Skyfall on like ITV2. I could double check that, but yeah, it used to be all the time though. Like every weekend you would have a James Bond film on. But what I was gonna say about the licenses, just quickly. I know we haven't got much time, but I don't know if you've ever seen the non-official James Bond film.
Never say never. I've not seen it. No.
No, yeah. So you've never seen it with Sean Connery? Go and watch it. It's a good film. Never say never.
Oh, well, that's just come up with Justin Bieber.
Never say never again. You know the title of that is because he goes, oh no, I never say never again. But it's an okay film. But I find it quite interesting how like they had the right, wasn't it It's a remake of Moonraker. What is it? Moonraker? Sorry.
It's based on the James Bond novel Thunderball.
Sorry. And something to do with copyright, and there was like a script or something. Someone had the rights to a script, and they wanted to make their own film version of it.
I mean, it's released by Warner Brothers, so it's not like some tiny.
But that's the only film like you can't like. It's not part of the collection because they released all the James Bond films on a Blu-ray set many years ago, and it was one of them. That's not part of it because it's not included with their license. And it's like that Casino Royale. Like they couldn't. They had to.
They couldn't use the gun barrel sequence. There's no James Bond theme.
Yeah. Well, they had to pay the rights. They had to pay something, didn't they? They had to something with the rights had to expire, or they had to pay someone for the rights to even make the film.
It, looking at it briefly, looks like it's a James Bond film using the characters, but it's not going to have the feeling of a James. Does it feel like a James Bond film?
Oh, what? Never Say Never Again. It is, yeah.
No. I'm saying, when you're watching it, does it feel like a James Bond film? Because James Bond has a very particular feel to it. The way he acts, but the things like the film score, and if you can't have the dun 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 dun, you got to have something else. But like sometimes it's like, what they say about the Star Wars films, the title credits to what's the one where they steal the Star Wars plans? Rogue One.
Oh yeah, they skipped it.
Well, they didn't use Star Wars music. It sounded like a knockoff version of Star Wars. So it sounded like Star Wars music, but it wasn't the actual theme song itself.
And they didn't use the title
no
dialogue.
So it's like it is
monologue.
A Star Wars film, but not quite, because some of the really important elements are missing. But if you can't have it, you can't have it.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, some people cannot get through the opening with the this lady singing "Never Say Never Again," but for me, it works fine. But it's James Bond. It's Sean Connery's last performance as James Bond. What more do you want? Yeah, definitely go out and seek it out. It's been on like ITV.
Well, if it's not owned by MGM, it might be on a streaming service.
Yeah, it could be. Who knows? But yeah, no, that's if you haven't seen that one and you're a James Bond fan, then might as well watch it at some point if you're bored. But yeah, no, because you're just talking about rights. It's quite an interesting one. But yeah, I think that. What's your what? I didn't really get your rating of No Time to Die.
I don't think it's much different to yours actually.
What you would give it like a 7.5?
Well, no, okay.
As a James Bond film, but
so I would describe it in context with the rest of Daniel Craig's movies. It's a bit like Daniel Craig's movies are a bit like a tick. So it starts off, goes down a bit, and then it trends upwards.
Then it goes down. Then it's gone.
I don't think it goes down. I don't think Spectre was worse than Skyfall.
It definitely is, mate.
Problem is, I've only seen Spectre once, and I've seen Skyfall a couple of times.
Spectre was the most forgettable film I've ever seen in my life.
That's the problem I have, is that Quantum of Solace and Spectre, I have only seen the once.
I would say that as well. Quantum of Solace was quite forgettable as well.
Yeah, because I was thinking that is like I could describe it as a W. So it's like Casino Royale, go down to Quantum of Solace, then go back up to Skyfall, then go down to Spectre. But I couldn't remember enough about Spectre to commit to slagging it off.
One thing I would say about Casino Royale, which I love, is the actual poker. And that's the only time we get that in this whole series of Daniel Craig, is the poker.
Okay, why is that important?
Because like in the original Sean Connery films when he's playing poker, I love the fact that James Bond had to play poker in order for he had to get his money, the villain's money. And it's very similar in Never Say Never Again, which the film you're not seeing, where he doesn't technically play poker, but he plays at some sort of game to bankrupt his villain. So, but I'm just saying, like, you don't really get any other poker scene except for Casino Royale. Do you remember any other poker? He didn't play poker in this film, did he?
Nope, no. There was no poker. There was not.
And even the Pierce Brosnan, like, I remember him playing a little bit of poker, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he did. I just don't know why it's so important to you.
Oh, it's just that's all I remember.
That's not when I think about James Bond. I think Aston Martin DB5. I think Walter PPK. I don't think poker.
That's the thing. I've not read the books. I don't know if poker is like it in the books, but.
It's not that it is or it isn't. It's just not
in the films. I just remember him smoking his cigarette or cigar, playing poker.
I just don't think that's a core part of James Bond. Like, I think
love
about
it.
James Bond, and I think about Roger Moore sneaking around an island when he in a kotu or whatever, however you pronounce the Japanese sort of dressing gown, like sneaking around, throwing bad guys into alligator-infested waters, that kind of thing. Not poker.
No, I associate it with playing poker.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone's James Bond is different, isn't it?
But I did hope for a bit of poker for some reason. I don't know why. I would hope the next film would be more like Casino Royale was mainly based on the poker.
I think that was one of the things that people didn't really like about it. It wasn't actiony enough.
Really? Wasn't enough? What, the poker?
It wasn't actiony enough.
Yeah, you could say that, but I loved the poker in that film.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast feed. You can leave a comment or a review down in YouTube or in your podcast app. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, do you want to do the intro and the outro?
You're better. My voice is. I got a snotty nose.
Oh, lovely.
Sorry, mate. Do you want me to do it? Okay. This week we are here to talk about. I'm trying to do your voice.
Do you want me to text you? I'll send you the text to read out.
Okay.
Okay. There's the intro.
Oh, here you go. Welcome. Okay. Welcome to the North vs. South podcast. This week we discuss the latest James Bond film. Please expect spoilers for this film and other James Bond film. Let me do the last bit. Please expect spoilers. My voice is so dry. Please expect spoilers for this film and other James Bond films. Let me just do it again. Welcome to the North vs. South podcast. This week, we discuss the latest James Bond film. Please expect spoilers for this film and other James Bond films. Oh, my nose. I'm a quick man.
Okay, and then the outro.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode. Please comment below, rate or subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. You happy now?
Yep, that'll do.
Okay. No one's going to listen anyways.
I mean, I'm probably not going to use either of them, but,
Right. Let me stop my recording.